as a parent or as the grown-up, you know, I tried to weave my way into topics that allowed that discussion as opposed to me talking at her. When she turned 18, she went to Montreal to meet a fellow that she met on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, right.
Yeah. Now, my only comfort was that she had been talking to him for about a year. That's a little too long to invest for a groomer, for a trafficker. I did discuss with the police department, the human trafficking department in Montreal. So if you do ever suspect something, you can bring it to the police department, not the general department though. You bring it to the human trafficking department. No different than if there's an altercation and you think there's a mental health issue, it's important to say there's a mental health issue because they will send a mental health worker with the officers because they're not trained in everything, nor can they be. Like they're not therapists, they're not counselors, you know. So what I had said to her is when you get there, if at any point, if you feel something's not right, when you're texting me, write a X. Normally she'd do XOXO, just one X, because one X will tell me you're in trouble. I need to call the police department there because it would take me 6 hours to drive. So it was more about when we talked about, it's not so much about preventative, but what do you do in case of, right? Yeah. It's not, you know, but at the same time, you gotta let them go out and, you know, I'm going to a bush party. You know, you have to let them grow and make their mistakes. But these are so risky. I mean, there was a girl in the States, I think this was 2 or 3 years ago, that applied for a job. Left the state for the job, only to find out that the job was not the job, it was the job, right? Luckily, she was rescued. She did find her way out, but not everybody does. As a survivor, whenever I see a child's missing, it's the first place I go. The damage that is done is lifetime. I got out when I was 34, I'm 62 now. And I still deal with the aftermath.
May I ask a question?
Sure you may.
What are some of the myths and misunderstandings around human trafficking that you run into?
I think that you hear things like, oh, in Hamilton, of course it happens in Hamilton. Okay, that's a myth. It's not just Hamilton, it's from the elite to it's not just the people you'd see like on Barton Street. No disrespect to Barton Street, but
It's not selective.
it's not selective, you know. When we look at somebody,
Like the people that involve themselves in the trafficking of people, that like buy time with, you know, minors that are being trafficked, aren't just
no, they're judges, lawyers,
Yeah.
police officers, children's aid, big stuff coming up around children's aid, you know, daycares, it's everywhere. And we have a tendency to think that it's just, you know, that drunken person on the corner that, you know, maybe looks homeless or disheveled.
Yeah.
It's not. And you're back to, you can't put anybody in a bubble, you just have to be vigilant, is that the word? Vigilant, right?
These girls, are they possibly still in school or the job, or are they?
A lot of girls are still in school, working maybe on weekends or evenings,
Sometimes still living at home.
still living at home. And so it's really hard for a parent or somebody to see that there's a shift. And, but there are ways to you know, you start reading somebody's energy. You can see it in their eyes. their grades start to fall, things start to crumble. And a lot of times the first thought is, my kid's hanging around with the wrong crowd. And technically, yeah, they are. They are, right? Now, how do you get them out is the question. I mean, I worked with a woman, I had met her at, we were doing a thing on human trafficking at Covenant House, and she was a survivor, and her daughter grew up initially while she was still being trafficked. The mother was still being trafficked. The mother got out of the business, she escaped, went back to school, studied, and is now working in the field, right? Because you become an expert on the issue. And her daughter is being trafficked. And her daughter doesn't want to get out because she just doesn't know any better. I can't imagine what that mother's going through, so. I do know that when my daughter wrote me a letter for my 60th birthday, and it said, "Your life is made up of the things horror movies are based on." And I went, okay. She was 17 at the time. And I have watched you grow, Mom. And that's where I got really teary. Just as you have watched me grow. And I want you to know that you didn't deserve any of this. Nobody deserves. We talk often, we think that it's just women, girls, boys, LGBTQ, anybody that is, has a dollar value is prime target.
And human trafficking isn't just confined to a trade for sexual acts also, right? Like there's also labor trafficking as well.
Huge amount of labor trafficking. So if you work in an office building and the crew comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a good chance that somebody's holding their passports. Because if you have a cleaning crew coming in at midnight or 1 a.m., the chances of them running into anybody in that building is slim to none. If it's 8 o'clock at night, there's a chance that somebody's working late, because people do. So you find that it's moved later and later, and their passports are being held. Families are being threatened. There's a lot of shame in being trafficked. Why didn't I know better? Why couldn't I this? Whatever goes on. And particularly now with the internet, you can't just move cities. There's nowhere in the world you can go that your business can't be posted out there. So it's a lot scarier now than it was. It wasn't a picnic in my day, but it's worse now. It is worse now. Ding. Ding. And sorry. No, the other thing is that, we initially, when we're talking about government subsidy and all the rest, can you imagine you or your kids or, a niece or somebody, they're stuck in a hotel or motel with people coming in and out all day. They get out, we have nowhere to put them. We have no housing. You can't put them in a regular shelter. A lot of times where we were putting them at the time was in a motel because we had nowhere else. That is incredibly triggering. I can't imagine having to sit in a motel 24/7. No business as my safety net. How triggering that must be. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, how are you? Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You mind if, I'm a little bit late coming in, I apologize.
That's okay.
But if you've already answered this, that's okay. But what needs to change? Like, I know trafficking has to be against the law, but how do we, is there laws that need to be changed, or what needs to be changed in order to stop the illegal activity and so on?
I don't think the reality is that I do sit on some boards where people think that we are going to eradicate human trafficking, just like the the war on drugs. It ain't happening. It's unrealistic. It is modern day slavery, and we have been enslaving people since, I don't know, Jesus Christ, right, or before then.
Hey, you Jews, watch it.
But,
You Jews, watch it.
yeah, it's okay, so was he, you know? And we did not nail him to the cross, let me be real clear with that. Total sidetrack. But I think the laws in regards, you have to hit them where it hurts. So the sentencings need to increase. And I think with men, you either hit, it's a secret, you either hit their wallets or their egos. Either or, when it comes to men, that's where you, and I want to be clear also, there are a lot of women traffickers.